tracking priorities is the mechanism we use to make sure that what we're setting out to do and what we've labeled as the most important items actually get done. So if you look at the one page, everything clearly at the top of the one page, we have the key elements of the strategy. And down the bottom, we have the 90 days, the 1 year, and the 3 years, or the longer term items that we need to focus on. And we're most interested when we're tracking priorities in what's happening over the next 90 days. And what do we do? Well, if we look at a typical 90-day priorities, and here's some sample priorities, you can see that they all have been written in a specific way. They're labeled 1 to 5. We'll never do more than 5. 3 maybe, 4 maybe, 5, all good. Never do more than 5, otherwise they're not really priorities over a 90-day period. Each of them is written very specifically. They're written in a way that we'll know whether they've been achieved or not. And they've got the people responsible, the first name being the person who is actively going to make sure that this item gets over the line. It's not necessarily the person who's going to do all the work, but it's the person who's going to take accountability and make sure that if there's ever a conversation about this particular priority, they will know what's going on. The second and third names, or the other names that follow the person who's going to be the key person accountable, will be the people who will support them. Often these priorities, particularly at the senior parts in the organization, are going to need support from people from many other places. So you don't necessarily need to write everybody's name. If these are at the top level team or the Exco team's priorities, you'd limit the names to only members of the Exco team, who will typically be the ones who are tracking these priorities. And then there's place for a status. And the status is where you can update the priority with how it's doing. So for example, it's either going to be on track, at risk, or off course. And you would literally fill in onto the status column what's the current status of each of the different priorities. And typically what would happen is that the person who's the person accountable for each of the priorities would update the status ahead of the meeting, which is reviewing them, and would talk to the reason why the color is green or orange or red. And I want to talk a little bit about the different colors, because what's key to recognize is that actually orange and red even are not bad things necessarily. Obviously, you'd like everything to be green all the time, but it's actually much better for something to be turned orange or red to highlight that actually there's something gone wrong with this particular priority. So you can see orange is it's behind schedule and needing intervention to get back on track. So something's gone wrong. It's not happening as we had planned, and we're going to need some help here. So putting it as orange, and the person labeling it as orange is putting their hand up to say, hey, there's a problem here. I've either able to solve it myself, or I need help, and this is what I'm doing, or this is my plan. How does that plan sound? Other people can then lean in and review it. And likewise with red, if it's gone completely off course and it's not going to be completed, it's important to label it as red. Clearly it's a problem if every time somebody takes on a priority, that it always turns red and never ever turns back to orange or back to green. However, it's very positive for something to turn red, to be highlighted as needing attention, to be worked on, to be turned orange, to be worked on some more, and to turn back to green and finish in the quarter having been completed. That's a very positive thing to do. So I'd encourage anyone responsible for priorities to make sure that they label them accurately at any point in time. We use the very simple green, orange, red, so we don't need to have very long conversations. We can start talking about what are the remedial actions that need to be taken to get something back on track, rather than debating whether it's on track or not. The person who is accountable, who's making sure that a particular item gets over the line, is the person who is best informed and knows best what's going on in terms of the status, and will use that to inform the others so that you can hopefully get everything to green by the end of the quarter. So in summary, create a simple management system. As you can see, you can track this using a spreadsheet or a Microsoft Word document or a Google Sheet. Very, very simple. Update it often. Okay, make sure the person accountable is updating it. And orange and red statuses are healthy indicators. They tell us that attention is needed. So don't avoid them at all costs. Rather label them quickly orange and red so you can get them back to move the reds to the oranges and the oranges to greens.